Welcome back to the League of Inches podcast. You got myself, the host, Joel, here to discuss our quarterly, uh, basically team reviews, how your team is going so far after 6 rounds. It's kind of the quarter mark. It's obviously a 27-week comp, so divide that. You're getting 6.8 or something like that. And obviously that doesn't work. So we'll go now, round six. After round six, see how things are shaping. So let's get straight into it. South Sydney Rabbitohs 17th at the moment, last on the ladder. So much has been going on with this club at the moment. We've had our say in our weekly shows, so you all sort of know already. I don't want to lay the boot too much into South Sydney at the moment, but last place, they do have a win on the board, though. It's at the moment minus 102 points differential. That is ridiculous to think about. A South Sydney team last on the ladder minus 104 differential. That is huge. Going through quickly their results so far this year. Look, the Vegas game was obviously the first game up, and that seems like a lifetime ago, if we're being honest. So Manly, they lost to Manly 36 points to 24. Then there was a loss to the Broncos after that, a smashing by the hands of the Roosters, one that they want to forget quickly. They beat the Dogs. Then they went and lost to the Warriors, another smashing, and then got beat by the Cronulla Sharks on the weekend in a closer encounter. I guess the big point to talk about with South Sydney is obviously their coach, Jason Demetrio, and does he deserve to be still a man with a job? Obviously, last week he was under enormous pressure. There was talk about if he doesn't win this game, he's gone. I think if it gets to that point for a coach, time is up. It's time to move on. It's time to rebuild as a club. It's time to focus on new horizons. It's time to focus on the future. And I don't think JD's in their plans anytime soon. So I don't know why they're going to keep this going, whether it's for another couple of weeks or whatever. Yes, the attitude was a lot better on the weekend, but it shouldn't take the stuff that's come out in the media to happen for this playing group to finally turn up. This should have been happening from the start of the year. They had a roster capable of doing some damage in his competition this year. That's now they've stuffed it. I'll go out as far as saying that I think the South Sydney Rabbitohs are done for 2024. They will not be making the top 8 at all. And at the moment, they're in a real battle to avoid being a bottom 4 team. Next up off on the ladder, coming in at 16th, is the Gold Coast Titans. So they actually haven't had a win yet this year. A winless team. Thanks to the bye, they're on 2 competition points, minus 86 points differential. Now we go through. Obviously, it's been all losses for the Gold Coast Titans so far. Round one, they got pumped by the St. George Illawarra Dragons at home. That was a very, very disappointing result. Round two was the bye. Round three, another pumping by the hands of the Canterbury Bulldogs. That was 32-0. Geez, that one feels like a lifetime ago as well. The Dolphins then beat them again. And then it was another Queensland derby. The Cowboys beating the Titans this time. And then we saw, obviously, on the weekend, the Raiders edging them in Golden Point there. Look, it's a tough one with the Titans because I think it's what a lot of people thought in the offseason. I was one of them. I was so high on the Gold Coast Titans this year. I really thought they were going to be an exciting footy team, really great brand of footy. Des Hasler sort of installing that sort of defense orientated mindset with the Titans, which I think they needed. They've always been able to beat teams 40 points to 30, but that's not the sort of team they need to be to win a premiership. That's obviously what Des Hasler's gone in to do. It hasn't happened yet. That partnership has not married up as what they probably would have liked. There's starting to become some signs, so I've got no doubt in my mind that first win is coming. But in saying that, their draw coming up, especially in the immediate future, is very, very difficult still. So I'm not sure when the win's going to be. It's definitely coming. They are definitely improving. Some little changes in their team with like the halves. I think Foran and Brimson together worked really, really well. I think Tommy Weaver is one to look out for when it comes to that. When he's fully fit, I think he'll be back into this team. Especially now with Jaden Campbell out injured, you'll see AJ Brimson move to the fullback spot, I believe. And then we'll see what happens there. Tana Boyd, for mine, hasn't been the answer at halfback. I haven't personally been a massive fan of Tana Boyd. I just don't think he's had the quality in his game that the Titans need moving forward in a halfback. funnily enough, the guy that they had in there before, Jamal Fogarty, just iced the game and beat them with a field goal on the weekend. Exactly the type of player I think the Gold Coast Titans need at the moment. Moving on, the Canterbury Bulldogs 15th position at the moment. So they've got 2 wins next to their name, 4 losses. And then differential is only -7. So they've been in and around games. I like to always point out the differential because to me, it speaks a lot about how that team's actually going. They could be 3-3, for instance, and have a -100 points differential. You know that team is not traveling well. Like we just seen with the Rabbitohs, like, yep, okay, they have only won 1 game and they're traveling very, very poorly with that differential. The Dogs look like they're starting to do some stuff. They're not getting absolutely smashed as I go through their results. The first 2 weeks, they're obviously getting their sort of their shit together, so to speak. They lost to Parramatta. Then there was a loss to the Cronulla Sharks. Then that smashing we mentioned just then to the Titans sort of got the ball rolling, I believe. They just narrowly got defeated by the Bunnies in a game that easily they should have won and could have won. Then they beat the Roosters in that great game. They started on fire. Then I don't know what happened in the second half. I don't think they want to talk about that one. Then just going down to the Storm in another game where, to be honest, they probably should have won that one. That's one that got away from them. They could easily have won probably 4-2 at the moment and be in that top 8 sitting pretty. So far, it's probably for the Bulldogs a season that they want to start getting on track. They want to start winning those games and not being those games where they look back on and go, that should have been 2 points. Because we've seen in the past, teams really get bit by that. You don't want to become that sort of a team. But I definitely think the Dogs are starting to move towards that right track with things. It sort of looks like they're becoming a football team where I think it's fair to say, no disrespect to any of the Bulldogs fans, players, or club out there, there was a few years there they didn't look like an NRL team. They did not look like they deserved to be in the NRL with some of the stuff that they were dishing up. That's now moved ahead. Players like Kikau is being incredible so far this year. He's arguably been one of the best players in the competition. You'll see off the league inches, player of the year polls as well. He's right up there at the moment. So he's been playing phenomenal. They're working off the back of, say, the likes of him. Crichton, I think he needs his hands on the ball more. He's their attacking threat. He needs to get involved a lot more, even if it's at centre. Personally, I'd still have him. I'd put him back to that fullback position permanently. It'd be interesting what happens when Blake Taft does come back. 14th position is the Newcastle Knights. Sort of a year so far, they got two wins, 4 losses, and a -5 points differential. So again, they've been thereabouts as a football team for majority. Obviously, you see the banter between the Martin brothers and Jez on this page. Jez is attending all the games, goes there, passionate Knights fan. Look, round 1, they lost or got pumped really by the Canberra Raiders at home. That was disappointing. Lost round 2 to the Cowboys in a gold by 1 point. Then they beat the Melbourne Storm. They'd lost to the New Zealand Warriors. Then they beat the Dragons, and then they lost to the Roosters on the weekend. So up and down, very much so up and down season at the moment. Are they playing their best football? I don't think they're anywhere near it, and they're nowhere near last year's form, but I don't want to keep going back to that. Last year's was a flash in the pan. We've seen teams over and over again in previous years do the similar runs and never be able to get back to it. And that's the challenge. You can't expect to go straight into it. And they did that at the start of the year. They kept just going to Ponga, going, yep, Ponga will do something. Let's go. The halves for mine were very, very poor in Gamble and Hastings, and now that's obviously been changed up. I really like the Cogger Hastings partnerships. I think that's going to work well for him in the future. But the thing is, keep an eye on Will Price, the 5'8" there. He's in, obviously, New South Wales Cup, come over from Super League. I expect him to put a lot of pressure, and I would probably say mid-year, I think he gets a go. And I think we could be looking at a Cogger and Will Price halves partnership towards the back end of the year, which I actually think is a great thing moving forward for the Newcastle Knights. Attack galore and let Cogger steer the ship. Next up is the St. George Illawarra Dragons. They're 13th position at the moment, 3-3. So they're sitting there nicely. Not really when they're in 13th position, but -36 points differential. Going through their results so far. So round 1, they easily accounted for the Gold Coast Titans. Then they got smashed by the Dolphins. That was this typifies their season, and I'll get more into that. Then the Cowboys absolutely pumped them as well after they were in front that game. I think it was 24-0 or something like that. And then that try that Raymond Calamari dropped over the line. If he scores that, I feel like the Dragons run away with it, and then the Cowboys picked up the momentum from there and just ran away with that game and scored. I think it was 46 unanswered points in the end. Um, they beat the Manly Seagulls, a great game, probably their best, strongest game I think they've played. Then they got bashed up by the Newcastle Knights in that wet condition game 2 weeks ago. Then on the weekend, we've seen them beat the West Tigers. Now, this is the typical. This typifies the Dragon season so far. So up and down like a yo-yo. They can't put sort of back-to-back games together, and that's probably the concerning thing for Finnegan. But not surprising either. He's inherited this squad. There's no way in the world this is the squad he would ideally want. No disrespect to anyone there, but there is definitely going to be changes moving forward. We've already heard about how active they want to be in the recruitment market as well. We'll be interested to see who the retentions are as we close in on this year in the next couple of months to see who's in their plans and who it's clearly not. Obviously, Zach Lomax is one of those players who's been such a bright spark in their attack and such a go-to in their attack, which is I love to see because it means they're focusing on the now. But at the same time, there's rumors that he could be out of the club within weeks, or at least by the longest stretch will be at the end of this season. If that's all they've got at the moment as their focal point of attack, what's going to happen next year when they don't have that? Is there going to be someone who can come and become that new Zach Lomax? I don't think so. He's so good in the air. It's going to be interesting to see how the Dragons look at that moving forward and if they continue on in the next this season with this game plan because he's so lethal in the air. And it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Moving forward for the number 12th position, the West Tigers. Look, they are 2-1-2, lost 3, and then the bye as well. Minus 15 points differential. We have a look at their results so far for the West Tigers. Round 1 was the bye, obviously starting that famous 9th position. Then they got pumped by the Canberra Raiders, got absolutely demolished the Cronulla Sharks. That was a seriously impressive performance. Beat the Eels by 1. Dolphins beat them the next game. Then there was the loss to the Dragons on the weekend as well. Interesting. Look, I don't want to heap too much pressure on this kid right now, but Lockie Galvin is an absolute freak. Lockie Galvin at the moment has already taken this team under his wing and just said, "Follow me, guys." And him being out and their 2 losses. I don't think there's any sort of there's nothing there to suggest to me that that's no fluke because he has been so good since coming into this team. He provides a heartbeat for him. He provides the energy for him. He goes, let's go, boom, 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 and away he goes. I think he's been phenomenal. Unfortunately, that suspension does rule him out for Rookie of the Year. He would have been an absolute shoe-in for it. No doubt about that one. But he has been so good for the Tigers. There's definitely some improvements happening at the West Tigers. But there's some little things like on the weekend, I didn't like the fact that there was multiple times where it looked like as a group of players, there was no one there that wanted to take the ball up and have a run. That's some of those things that you need to make sure, no matter how you're going, that energy is there to say, you know what, I'm next man up. I'll take this hit up. And at the moment, that on the weekend, whatever it was for, fatigue or whatever, they just simply didn't have that yet. That is something that's going to take time to establish in the club and have the people there that they want. Benji and co, but we'll see what happens there with the West Tigers. 11th is the Parramatta Eels. Everyone has heard the rant by now, I'm sure of it, so I'm not going to go too far into that. But they're 3-3, minus 13 points differential. We go ahead and look at their results so far. So round 1, they beat the Bulldogs. Then they got beat by the Panthers, beaten the Manly Seagulls, got beat by the Tigers, got smashed by the Raiders, and then won on the weekend against the Cowboys. Very up and down season so far from the Parramatta Eels, mixed in with, I think, some selection choices as well, has been all over the shop in a way. And there's like the forward rotations, for instance, 1 week Junior starting on the bench and it looked like it worked at the start. Then he's pushed back to start, things like that, just changing people up for the sake of it at times. Be interesting to see what happens moving forward when they can get Moses back. Moses is so critical to this football team. I think everyone has established that now, and probably not given Moses enough credit in the past about how good he has been for both the Eels and just as a whole in the NRL. I think he will come back, and there will definitely be that respect to his name. For mine, he's up there. New South Wales possibility to wear that number 6 jersey alongside Nathan Cleary. But for the Eels, they just need to start getting some a bit of a run going because there's some hard games coming up for the club. They could easily not win any of their next probably 4 or 5. It is a difficult run. They've got the Dolphins this weekend, which is almost a must win in a way, just to get that extra 2 points going into a bye, and then taking off from there with some very, very hard games. For the Brisbane Broncos, they sit in 10th position. They're slowly climbing. It is taking them some time. They're 3-3 again. They got a plus 16 points differential. Their results so far. So obviously they're in Vegas round 1 against the Roosters where they got beat. And then they beat the South Sydney Rabbitohs round 2. Round 3, they got absolutely smashed by the Penrith Panthers. Then they smashed the Cowboys. Got narrowly beaten by the Storm in that great rugby league classic. Xavier Coates, how good. That still gets me excited every time I think about it. And then on the weekend, they beat the Dolphins as well. Crosstown rivals. They're I know they've got some injuries at the moment, the Broncos, and they've not played their best footy at all this year. The fact they're still 3-3 should probably give their fans, their members, the club, the players, the coaching staff, some positivity moving forward as we've now sort of get to that established part of the season where teams start to get on their runs to establish themselves in the top 8. They're thereabouts the top 8, so they're only 1 point off being in the 8 at the moment because of that draw on the weekend. But they're starting to get there. Walsh obviously came back on the weekend with that specialised headgear. That's a sign for mine. The club knows they need to start getting on this winning run. Adam Reynolds is crucial to that to come back over the next few weeks. They don't want to rush him back and risk losing him for an extended period as we get into that origin period and afterwards. So how they treat that is going to be very, very interesting to watch. Jock Madden's doing a great job. He can get the job done, so they don't need to rush Reynolds back. Payne Haas will be back in the next couple of weeks as well. Shout out to Paddy Carrigan, who I thought has taken the load in the forwards really well. He's been doing a sensational job to try and fill in the boots of an injured Payne Haas and really pick that forward pack up and say, let's go. Let's do this, boys. Position 9th is the Sydney Roosters. They're 3-3 as well. With a plus 37 points differential. So they're doing quite well. Obviously, round 1, they were in Vegas as well, beating the Brisbane Broncos. Round 2, they lost to the Manly Sea Eagles. Then round 3, that's smashing to the Rabbitohs 48-6. No doubt Roosters fans will be absolutely loving that and probably have that framed in their houses somewhere or their screensaver. Got beat narrowly by the Penrith Panthers in round 4. Round 5, they lost to the Bulldogs. And on the weekend, they beat the Newcastle Knights in a very tight one. For the Roosters, they're humming along. Again, they normally start slow. So to have 3 from 3, I think is a pass mark for a typical Roosters side. In saying that, they did put a lot of emphasis in the offseason about making sure they started well. They have had some injuries. They've had some problems in the forwards, but they've got remarkable depth. So even though they've had some injuries, they've had players step up and who are trying to make that position their own as well. So it's probably, in a way, been good and bad because they've got players wanting to put their best foot forward who are NRL quality and capable players in players like Angus Crichton, for instance, and doing a remarkable job so far. So, they've been down and out a couple of times personnel-wise, but they keep just finding men to do the job. I definitely think, along with the Broncos, funnily enough, that they're back-to-back on the table. I can see them both starting to make some waves in this competition as we approach the next quarter of the season. Moving into the top 8 sides, Manly Sea Eagles sit with 7 points, the 3 and a draw. They've got a plus 21 points differential. They started the year obviously in Vegas where they picked up the win against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Then they had another win against the Roosters. They were flying early on. lost to the Eels in a game that they would be looking back on. How did we lose that? They're up 14-0 early on. Looked like they were running downhill, and then who knows what happened. They lost to the Dragons as well at win. That was a big loss for them. They lost. They beat the Penrith Panthers. That was a huge win. Brookvale was pumping for DCE's 300th. And then obviously the draw on the weekend to the New Zealand Warriors. They're doing enough to be a very dangerous football team this year, Manly. They're one that you do not want to take lightly, especially at home. At home, we've just seen it with the Panthers' victory. They will beat literally anyone. They grow an extra couple of legs when they play at Brookie, and they're so dangerous. The thing is, they've got to make sure that sort of performance like they had at against the Dragons, even though I know they don't have a great record against them, they have to make sure that doesn't happen. And there's been a couple of games now, the Eels one, and then on the weekend where they've had some pretty decent leads where most of the good sides, if they want to try and be a top four team this year, the top four teams would make sure they won those games from those positions where they've lost two of those now. Well, not they drew one of them, but they lost points there. So that would be a concern, I'm sure, to Cherry Evans, to the coaching staff, etc. as well. They just need to make sure they don't do those sort of fade outs or have that playing group thinking when they get to a lead, oh, we've got this one, we can do this easy. Let's start playing expensive football. You want to be a top four team, you've got to play that sort of top four rugged footy that's getting you to those leads for 80 minutes, not for 30, 40, 50 minutes. The New Zealand Warriors sit in seventh position, the same record, 3-3 and a draw. They got plus 38 points differential. Their results so far we can look at now. Round one, they lost to the Sharks narrowly, and then they lost narrowly to the Melbourne Storm, beat the Canberra Raiders, beat the Newcastle Knights, easily accounted for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, and then the draw on the weekend to Manly. Obviously, a very shaky start to the New Zealand Warriors. They only lost narrowly, though, which was probably the best signs for their coach to suggest, okay, we are on the right path here. Let's just change up a couple of little things and let's start to get those W's, which they've now done. They've been able to get on a bit of a run. That draw on the weekend was another game that they didn't play great. That was something that the Warriors will take out of that and say that was a bonus point for us, where Manly will go away from that thinking we lost a point there. That was ours to win. So even though they're not playing great football, they're in the top 8. They got 7 competition points, the Warriors, and I think they're right in this competition up into their eyeballs. They're one of my real competition heavyweights this year, and expect them now to start continuing this run. Sean Johnson's looking like he's in some great form. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck looks like he's never left. Their backline is one of the strongest in the competition, in my opinion. Rocco Berry is such an underrated center. I know everyone's talking about RTS, but watch what Rocco Berry does on a week-to-week basis. He is simply sensational. And then you look at their forward pack. Tohu Harris, a massive worker, doesn't stop. So critical to their actual attack. When you watch how crucial he is, people talk about Isaiah Yeo. People talk about Cameron Murray. He's exactly the same to the New Zealand Warriors. It's actually phenomenal to watch him at work. Aiden Fanua-Blake, I didn't know what to expect from him this year. Obviously signed that big lucrative deal with the Sharks and needing to get home for family reasons. I didn't know what we'd get from him, if he would be all in this year. He clearly is. You can't question that. And I can't wait to see this run coming up for the New Zealand Warriors. I think they're going to start to win a fair few football games. Number 6, or coming 6, is the Penrith Panthers. They're 3-2 and a bye. That puts them with a plus 14 points differential. So a little bit low for the Penrith Panthers. We look at their results so far this year, and round one, they obviously lost to the Melbourne Storm. Very close one, 8-0. So very low score between those two heavyweights of the competition. They beat the Eels, beat the Broncos, pumped them, beat the Roosters. They're on a run, and then Manly halted that. I said, hang on, none of that. And gave them a little bit of a bath there for a Penrith sort of sake. And then obviously on the weekend, they had the bye. Penrith. Look at that run they had going there for the 4 games straight. You can't take them lightly. Manly got them, and not taking anything away from Manly at all. They were so good that day. Penrith are just a little bit off, which we're I don't normally you don't say anything like that about Penrith. They're on each and every week. That's how good they are. But obviously, the loss of Nathan Cleary has been pretty big. It's put a lot of pressure on the likes of Luai, Yo, etc. Um, they've all received a pass mark for it, but you can just tell at times, especially that Manly game, they were missing that kicking game. Schneider's been great in that sort of make do role, but he's not a Nathan Cleary, and he doesn't have a Nathan Cleary boot, and that's what they're missing. No doubt when Nathan Cleary's back in that football team, they just keep going how they're going, and I've got no doubt that they're probably on their way to winning another competition to make it 4 in a row at the moment. They're simply looking that good when they're full strength and got everyone there. Fifth is the Dolphins. They're on 8 points, 3, 2, and a bye. 25 points differential. Let's have a look at their results so far. So round one, they got smashed by the Cowboys, and it wasn't a great start to their year. We're thinking, what's going on here? And then they turned it straight away, flip it around, absolutely dominate the St. George Illawarra Dragons 38-0. They got a bye. Then they beat the Titans. Then they beat the Tigers. And then they lost to the Broncos. Losing Hammer was crucial to them. They obviously played that without the likes of Flegler, Farnworth as well. So there was a couple of reasons there. Obviously, Broncos weren't full strength either. A lot has been said about the Dolphins. Have had a pretty easy run so far, going through those teams, and the teams probably they should have beat, they have done. So credit to them. There's a lot of teams out there that don't do that. So you go a long way of getting yourself into an 8 position if you can do that and win your home games. They've been able to do that majority of the time. They're just going to make sure they start to their depth is always the issue. I think they've got better depth this year. We'll see what happens moving forward. But at the moment, a little bit worried with the Dolphins. I think Hammer's a huge blow. He's so crucial to their attack. They're going to miss that spark, that power, that speed that he has in and around the ruck. And that's a crucial part of their attack. Can they replace that at the moment, especially while no Herbie Farnworth either? I don't think so. Can they pick it up once they're both back? We'll see what happens there and how far they are behind the pack. Cowboys are fourth, still sitting there in the top four. 4 wins, 2 losses, and a differential of 28. The Cowboys' results so far: round one, they beat the Dolphins, as we just spoke about. Round two, just got away with it against the Newcastle Knights. Smashed the Dragons when they probably could have easily lost that game. So that was a great comeback. Then they got pumped by the Broncos, beat the Titans. Titans were coming back to get them as well when they had a play in the sin bin. The Kyle Felt intercept turned that whole game around and flipped it back to the Cowboys. Then they lost on the weekend to the Parramatta Eels. Cowboys are a weird team. I still do not have a single read on them, even though they're sitting in the top 4. There is just still some things missing for mine to make them a genuine threat in this competition. I'm still not even 100% certain that they'll make the 8 at the moment. I don't like the way that they flick off in games. Again on the weekend against the Eels, they should have won that game by 20, especially early on. They should have had that lead and led by even more. Then it was like their players just thought this game's going to be easy, flicked off, and Parramatta came back into the game when they really didn't deserve to. That's just, and they're sort of the Cowboys. They don't respect the ball at the moment. That's saying that Todd Payten needs to make sure he gets into this team, because you're not going to beat any of the top 8 teams in this competition playing the way that they do. They've got to be careful with that moving forward. It'll be interesting to see how they try and change things, because they're a very exciting team. Their attack is probably the best in the competition when it's on. But there's 2 parts to rugby league, and if you're not going to be able to stick in and get the second part right, there's no point having that first part fantastic, because you're going to get chased down more often than not, and you're not going to win any of those tight football games. Third position, and someone that has put egg on the faces of so many of us out there, is the Canberra Raiders. I had him in the bottom 4, playing so well. 8 competition points, 4 and 2. And a differential of plus 48, which is the best in the competition. How's their results been so far? So round one, they had a nice win against the Newcastle Knights, absolutely beat them at Newcastle. Then they smashed the West Tigers, lost to the Warriors in New Zealand. And again, they're probably looking back on it, was one they probably let slip. They were in that, right into their eyeballs. The The Cronulla Sharks. They got beat by the Cronulla Sharks. Then you look at the Canberra Raiders against the Eels. They obviously smashed the Eels 2 weeks ago. Don't want to talk about too much as a Para fan, but they were on fire. And then they narrowly won on the weekend with a Jamal Fogarty field goal. Speaking about Jamal Fogarty, arguably the form player of the competition at the moment. He's leading the League of Inches Player of the Year awards by a couple of points at the moment. He's been sensational. His kicking game is arguably the best in the competition, especially at the moment while Nathan Cleary is out and Mitchell Moses. I think because we're not used to seeing them for a couple of weeks now, Fogarty's boot just sticks out like dog's balls. And we just get to appreciate how good his kicking game is. There's a lot of clubs out there that could do with Jamal Fogarty. The Canberra Raiders are lucky that they've got him, and he's doing wonders. Now, the second part of that is their kids. And I always said in the off-season, I said, even though I was predicting them to come bottom 4, I really enjoyed and really liked what I was seeing from their youngsters, whether it was in junior grades or coming into the grade. They're all putting their foot down. They're all putting their best foot forward. They've all of a sudden have remarkable depth at the club just because all these youngsters have stepped up whenever they've got their chance. So even if there's a couple of injuries in the forwards, in the back line, in the halves, they've got players to come in that next man mentality. And when you've got that as a club, you are so strong all over the park. You're going to be very, very hard to beat week to week. And that's what they're proving to be. Again, on the weekend, they weren't great, but they got the win. That's what matters the most. And I'm very worried if I'm an opposition coming up against the Raiders week to week because you know what you're going to get each week. And it's a very, very hard football team to beat. Second place, the Melbourne Storm, 10 points, 4 wins, 1 loss, and a bye, plus 14 points differential. Goodness me. This Melbourne Storm just keep doing what they're doing, don't they? They do it so well. Quickly bring up their results so far this year. And round 1 was that win against the Penrith Panthers. Then they beat the Warriors, lost to the Newcastle Knights. Then they had the bye, beat the Broncos, and then beat the Bulldogs on the weekend. They just do what they got to do. And the thing I've got to say, and be honest, obviously no Munster for a majority of these games. He's only come back in late the last week or two. Jerome Hughes has been massive. I think he's second or third in now overall player votes at the moment. He's been sensational for him. Pappy, we all were a bit worried how he'd come back. He looks like the best he's been in some time, and the support players are sniffing around the ruck, doing what he does best. The other one I want to point out is Harry Grant. I think he's been great yet, but he's been the fact that they're still winning without him being great is extremely dangerous for the competition moving ahead because I no doubt in my mind that 1, 6, 7, and 9 are going to click together. They're going to all be fully fit at one stage this year. They haven't done so yet, and they've already got some quality wins on the board. They're going to be almost unstoppable when you got those 4 doing what they can do. So very dangerous football team. Do not take the Melbourne Storm lightly. They are right in this competition, in my opinion. Sitting nicely, equal first at the moment, and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. Last one, the Cronulla Sharkies. First place, 10 points, 4 wins, 1 loss, 1 bye. 23 points differential. Now let's go through the Cronulla Sharks results. Round 1, they got away with a win against the Warriors. Great performance by them. Very tough over there at a packed out New Zealand Go Media Stadium. Smashed the Bulldogs. Got demolished by the West Tigers. That was eye-opening to see that sort of performance. Then they beat the Raiders. Great performance. Considering they came back from, I think it was 16 or 18-0 to win that one. Then round 5 had the bye on the weekend, put the South Sydney Rabbitohs away, who were depleted at the time. So it's another one where I know they're sitting at the top of the ladder. They're doing it well. I'd rather be up there than not be there and be down middle of the pack or something. So credit to the Sharkies there. But again, I just don't know if I'm sold on the type of football they're playing. I love the addition of Kyle Iro, where he's playing out in the centre. I love the fact that Talakai's coming off the bench. It just provides them with that little bit more spark off the bench from a forward perspective, which is what I think they've been missing for some time. So credit to Fitzy for making that decision. Hines and Trindle, the longer they keep playing together, they're starting to make that combination work a lot better and seem like it's more of a partnership, not trying to battle with who gets to do what. That's obviously going to be better for the Sharkies in the long run as well. They do have a bit of an easier run draw, which has already been well spoken about, so that will help them moving forward. There's just something for mine's just missing a little bit, but again, you'd rather be at the top than not be at the top. So credit to Cronulla Sharks for getting it done at the moment. They're the top of that area at quarter time, and that is basically all we have time for. So the live show will be back again this week, guys. So check Facebook, YouTube if you haven't already. Make sure you do subscribe. There's a Facebook subscriber group for only $3.99 a month. That's less than $1 a week. You get all exclusive content plus the additional in-game threads for each and every game. Early viewing for all our shows as well. And the list goes on. You get you get in the draw for 2 free tickets to any of your NRL games every fortnight. That draw is coming up after this weekend's game, so make sure you're in for the first draw. Get your tickets to the game of your choice. But thank you for listening. Thank you for becoming part of that League of Inches community and then watching this video, getting involved. Have your say, what you think of your team after the quarter way through the season. And we will come back and speak to you again. Tomorrow night we'll have the Supercoach show and Team List Tuesday. And then Wednesday we'll have the live show. See you then.